Welcome back for the Mobile Gaming Fanatics. I'm MyTyme, this is Top Drives, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to be doing gameplay like we normally do. We're going to go over a couple of other issues, but before I do, I want to give a couple of mentions to some of you guys from the comment section. First of all, Rosh555, thank you very much for pointing out that in the Jaguar XJR9 prelims, you will want to go with the Bronco, okay? The Bronco is the choice car for the off-roady dirty tracks. Okay, now I'll show you a few that I've got. The Aspen, it will beat these 3 out of 4 track sets. You can see people using that, the Nitro, the Trailblazer, even the Acura RDX, which I don't have. This car 54 RQ will do the business. It'll free up some RQ, allowing you to bring in some of the higher end cars for the other track sets. Unfortunately for me, it doesn't help me too much because I've got nothing else worked on to bring in. But if I go and show you a matchup very quickly, hopefully be lucky. Okay, so the motocross track, great example of it's going to beat the Trailblazer. Let's come through. It's going to beat the IDX, and I'll actually come up against this just to show it in action. So majority rules, majority of the time, this car is going to be the one you want to run. Okay, so with that in mind, definitely recommend bringing in the Bronco if you have it. Obviously, if you don't, you can't. But for those of you that are using the other cars, 3 out of 4 track sets, definitely better bringing in the Bronco. So thank you for that information. So information is power. So if you guys share me power, I will share it back with you. So thanks for that, Rosh. And I also want to say something from Sky Jaws, who happened to mention I was talking about the Porsche Panamera in my previous video. He has it. He has the car in his garage, and he said he's had it for 680 days, I believe, 680 odd days, and he's used it, I think it's like 2,600 times plus. Now, if that doesn't give you an indication of how useful a car is, you've used it over 4 times a day on average since you've been playing the game, then nothing is going to. So again, looks like an extremely underrated car, because compared to other legendary cars, and I can just put a few out, you know, statistically wise, it doesn't look as good as a 911 Turbo S, nowhere near as good as a 962 for drags and handling, etc. But what it does do, medium ground clearance, city streets and stuff, it does extremely well. So double check some of your cars. You may be sitting on some that are actually extremely useful that you just didn't realize. So let's come back to today's video. Now, before we go into it, I've decided I'm going to open a Ford carbon fiber pack because there are so many Ford Mustangs that I want to get. So let's just come in, open a Ford carbon fiber, see if we can get one of these Mustangs that I really want. I know it's not necessarily going to help me in the finals, but I'm just looking for one of those Fords that the Mustang GT. One of those Fords that I not so much desperately want, but be really keen to get. Should I open another? This might ruin my finals chances. You know what? I don't think I've got a chance in the finals anyway, because I'm not going to have enough of the cars. You're going to need to have at least probably 3 legendaries to think about getting one of those Jaguars, and I'm not going to have 3 of them. So let's see if we can. Okay, a Ford Expedition Platinum. Well, they did not go to plan. Okay, so pack wise hasn't been great, but let's come to the main point of today's video, and that is going to be some issues with regards to the latest patch, and that most of it is evolving around one car in particular, and that is the Pescarolo. Okay, so for those of you who are not aware, we'll show you now in case you haven't updated your game, haven't forced the update yet. If you haven't forced the update, you will have the old stat. Pescarolo has been able to do 3.90 to 60, for example. Now, after the update, the best you can get it down to is the 4.8. It starts as a stock 6 seconds, and you can get it down to the 4.8. Now, Hutch has had to do a big revamp on this, and there are many reasons why. Lots of people, big talking point, people complaining that this car has been, as they say, nerfed and is now no longer as useful. Now, what has happened here? Well, the Pescarolo, a lot of people will say, was extremely powerful for a super rare car. Now, it's worth noticing that when you come to all these cars, okay, it doesn't matter what cars they are. Let's just come and go into the filter, and let's just go to let's just go to, where should we go? We'll go manufacturers, okay? So Hutch has got licenses for all these manufacturers. Now, some of them will be more, should we say, more stringent with the representation of their cars in the game than others. Now, let's just say, for example, Audi, which want their cars to be represented in a certain way. If Hutch does something and their cars don't come across the way they like, they may then put it up with them, create an issue, and something that Hutch has to deal with. For example, maybe Audi wouldn't want the Pescarolo to be beating it in a 0 to 60 drag race. Okay, you get the drift. It's all about image and perception, for example. And although this is a game, Hutch obviously wants to keep a lot of the aspects realistic, so that the cars do actually perform like they would do in real life. But it's not always going to be as simple as that. And some of the other people who provide the licenses, some of the manufacturers, maybe do more behind the scenes that we aren't aware of, which force Hutch to make changes. So what would happen is people would say, we've got this car. Some people are saying, why don't you just increase its RQ? So let's put the Pescarolo up into ultra rares. Okay, so let's just reset everything. Let's put it up into ultra rares, and let's just say it goes to around, I'm going to say about RQ 51, okay, 51 or so. No, in fact, let me just change that filter again. Let's just say 51 to 52, somewhere about that, okay? So keep its stats, and it suddenly comes into this category. And you say, okay, well, it's going to be similar to the Tipo for the drag, but it's still going to be better. Okay, the Sport Clio is going to be better in, you know, handling and stuff, but it's still going to be a car which you'd rather have. All right, maybe the Lamborghini is similar to it then. Okay, you know, the Opel's going to do better than it handling, but Pescarolo being it in drag. You say maybe it has found its area, should we say. But no, we don't know if Hutch is allowed to do that with the Pescarolo. We don't know if the issue is that the stats of it have to be changed drastically, and it's not just a case of putting it into a new bracket or a new RQ, for example, changing its rarity. So some people will say, well, if we did that, that would be fine. Now you're going to get other people who say, well, that's unfair because I haven't got a Pescarolo yet, and if it goes into the ultra rare, it's going to be even harder for me to get one. And there'll be some people that will say, well, if it goes up in rarities and people have already got them, they're going to get extra fuse material, etc. There'll be other people who said, I've sold my Pescarolos, the last 2 or 3, for fuse because I've already got 1 or 2 built. Now you're telling me they're going up to ultra rare. I want compensation for those cars because I'm missing out on those ultra rare fuse that I would have had. So many issues. So what can Hutch do? Well, Hutch, the good thing about a game like this, is that we have actual brands, actual cars with actual names. It's not like we're playing PES, you know, old school PES, and they can't say Ronaldo, they can't say Messi, you know. So Messi was spelt differently, Ronaldo was spelt like Ronaldo or something like that. You know, we don't have Lamborghinis in here or anything like that. We can use actual card names with actual car images, which is great. So one solution that Hutch could potentially do is take a car like, say, the Pescarolo, and if there was an issue with it when it's been released, that it could be performance wise as well. Maybe the car isn't performing quite as they wanted. They could keep the car in the game, but maybe use like a ghost car. I'm using it in speech inverted commas to say ghost car because it would still be in the game for people that have it, still to be used. However, it wouldn't be called the Peugeot 606 Pescarolo. It would be called something else, some kind of made up thing for the time being. And then as soon as whatever the issues have been worked out of it, it would then be converted back into the car in question. Now, that is one way that you wouldn't stop people who had the car from being able to use it, and people could still technically get that car even while it wasn't fully fixed. So that is one suggestion. But the other suggestion that I actually think is quite a good idea, and I'll be surprised why Hutch hasn't used this yet because it's already implemented in the game, and that is, and I'm going to use epics just to show you. I have 3 here, okay, which I can show you. I have 3 cars which are outside of the epic parameters, but that meaning the top epic should be in theory 79 RQ, because if you go to your garage and you reset your cars and you pick legendaries, the lowest RQ legendary that you will have for this moment in time is 80 RQ. Now the biggest issue is people seem to complain more when epics go up to legendaries and legendaries go down to epics, because obviously they're the hardest cars to get. People don't really care as much when super rares go to rares or uncommons go to rares. Then they don't cause such a stir. It's the big boys which do most of the, should we say, the waves in the ocean. So why can that philosophy not be applied to lower tiers? So the Caterham Superlight is regarded as being far too strong for the epic cars. I mean, it's a great car, a key car. However, Hutch realised that in the grand scheme of legendary cars, this car is going to get eaten up on pretty much everything, with the exception of maybe like slaloms, things like that. Put in any kind of track set, drag, anything like that, test bowl, it's going to get destroyed by so many of the legendaries. So what they did instead was they kept it as an epic, but they increased its RQ. So in a non-legendary event, you can use the Superlight. However, obviously from an RQ perspective, it is going to be more expensive in your team, and it may be difficult for you to fit it in with some lower RQ cars, but you have the option to use it. Same here with the RS7 Sportsback and the Renault Sport Megane Trophy. Again, another car which they said was probably just a little bit too OP to be the same as the standard epics, so they've just increased its RQ slightly. Why could we not do that with cars like the Pescarolo? Why could we not have that option with cars from any tier within reason? Okay, maybe it's going to be more applicable for the higher rarities. People maybe won't care as much in rare, etc. But as a good example here, the Pescarolo. Why could the Pescarolo, if it wasn't a case of there was anything particularly wrong with its stats before, but there was some other issue, if there's another issue and they can't keep those stats, it's different. But if they could, why could they not just say, okay, this car has been placed slightly wrong, we're going to tweak it, and it's going to be a 50 RQ, or it's going to be a 51 RQ super rare. Okay, so this becomes 51 RQ super rare. So if it is an ultra rare only event, you can't use this car, even if its RQ fits in there, because it's not an ultra rare. So you keep it its super rare status, you keep it its kind of key car. People who have got it can be happy, people who haven't got it still want to get it, can still use it, but you have reduced its overpoweredness by increasing its RQ. And then we'll have a situation where we can have multiple cars that can change they can change slightly without having drastic implications by moving it up or down a rarity, and the car can still be useful. I don't know. There could be a reason. Okay, there could be a reason why we only see this really in epics at the moment. But the same logic can also go for legendary cars, and there's nothing to say why you couldn't say, oh, a car like the Lotus Exige S could still stay as a legendary car, but it couldn't drop down to 79 or 78 RQ, knowing that it was still maybe a little bit too strong for epics. But in terms of a legendary car, we can make it potentially more viable and more useful for people who pull it by dropping it just to 79 RQ or 78 RQ, and allow it to feature more in hands when you're trying to when you're trying to negotiate around tight RQ requirements. Now, let me know in the comment section below if you think that makes sense or not. In my mind, it does. I mean, in my head, that is something already in the game, which Hutch already has experience with, which people saw as a good solution. And I'm talking about the Superlight, for example, and the Audis. Rather than changing their tiers, let's do that with super rares. Let's do that with some of the ultra rares, especially the cars which are causing the most headaches. Anyway, that's just me having a think. We do have the merry-go-round event as well. The Super Saloon's coming up to an end. I'm not going to bother about gameplay for now. I wanted to bring you my thoughts on the pescarolo kind of scandal that is going on at the moment. Please feel free to let me know in the comment section below what you think of my idea as well. It is something I would like to put towards Hutch, but they, you know, probably have their own ideas anyway. As ever, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back soon, and thank you for watching, everyone. Take care.